For the superstitiously minded, let us call this part 12 plus 1 of my series, The Holy Bible Verse by Verse. I shall here be covering Genesis chapters 10 and 11. Genesis chapter 10 is also known as the Table of Nations. We are after the flood, and everyone on the earth is related back to the 8 people who survived it. Until the middle of the 19th century, this, like other Bible myths, was taken to be fact. Archaeology, science and education means that this belief is now restricted to the willfully ignorant. The first thing that might strike you about this list is that it's meant to be all-encompassing. It is a comprehensive list of the tribes founded by Noah's offspring. But, surprise, surprise, these tribes only cover that small part of the world known to the writers of the Bible. The Tower of Babel myth will explain how these tribes got spread around and their languages confused, but nothing more. Where are the Chinese, Japanese, Indians, Inuit, Native Americans, North and South, Australian Aborigines, Maoris, Pacific Islanders, Sub-Saharan Africans, Northern Europeans? Of course, the answer is that they did not exist in the minds of the Hebrew writers of the Bible. Had there been any divine inspiration, the texts would not be so parochial, but there wasn't, and so they are. The Table of Nations in chapter 10 and Shem's line in chapter 11 are attributed to the priestly source. Knowing that, it then becomes glaringly obvious when the Yahwist or J source pokes its head into the text, of which more anon. I'm not going to go through the begats one by one, but would point out that this is a mythology to explain the origin of the tribes known to the Hebrews at the time the priests were writing this mythology down in Babylon around 500 BCE. And within it we find some oddities, as so often we do in this inerrant text. But an overview first. Noah's grandsons are the eponymous progenitors of the tribes known to the Bible writers. Japheth is the grandfather of the tribes around the Black Sea, west to Greece and east to northern Iran. Genesis 10:5 states, "By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands," and this is taken to show that Japheth is the father of the Europeans. Shem is the grandfather of the Semitic tribes, which encompass most of the Arabian Peninsula and east through Iran. Ham is the grandfather of those areas under the influence of Egypt in the Bible, and this has been extended to mean all of Africa. And the sons of Japheth, Shem and Ham, give their names to all the tribes known to the Bible writers. So to the oddities. Genesis 10:8-12 looks out of place. You can spot Yahweh Lord in verse 9, which tells us that this is not of priestly origin. And the hypothesis is that this is the Yahwist or J source, dating to around 950 BCE in the kingdom of Judah. Reading 8 through 12, we have an odd legendary non-eponymous hero, Nimrod, being shoehorned into Noah's family tree. That this was copied into the existing text by priestly scribes who perhaps did not know the story is evidenced in further ways. Verse 10 reads, "And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar." Calneh is now very widely accepted as misread by whoever scribbled down the original text, and in many modern versions of the Bible, verse 10 now reads, "And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad, all of them in the land of Shinar." Verse 11 reads, "Out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah." This makes no sense. If it is Nimrod who is the great hero, then what is Asher doing? Nineveh and Calah are both Assyrian cities. Assyrian in Hebrew is Asher, which suggests that Asher here is not a person but is actually Assyria. Rehoboth means wide places or streets and has not been identified as an independent settlement. So verse 11 could probably be rewritten and brought up to date as, "Out of that land he, Nimrod, went forth into Assyria and built Nineveh and its plazas and streets and Calah." This Table of Nations is repeated in 1 Chronicles with a few differences, but I'm sure that they are both absolutely correct. The scribe was perhaps having a bad day. Perhaps it was because he was trying to figure out how to fit the great hero Nimrod into this lineage of eponymous progenitors. So Nimrod sticks out like a sore thumb in this list, but was an earlier story of enough significance or well enough known that the priestly scribes shoehorned it into their new text. The answer comes partly when you read chapter 11. Verses 10 through 32 are the generations of Shem through to Abraham and are again attributed to the priestly source. But the first 9 verses are again the older Yahwist or J source, given away again by the use of Yahweh or Lord in the text. And these 9 verses are the story of the Tower of Babel. Very obviously, these verses are connected to verses 8 through 12 in chapter 10. From whence did this old myth of Nimrod and Babel come? We have a great warrior, Nimrod, founding Babel, Erech and Akkad, and then moving into Assyria to found Nineveh and Calah. There's an acre of speculation on who Nimrod might have been. The Sumerian king list provides many candidates, none stronger than Sargon the Great. The story goes that Sargon was illegitimate, born in secret, and placed in a basket of reeds on the river. Sound familiar? We also have the story of Enmerkar, a 27th century legendary Sumerian king, and the lord of Aratta, 1,000 years older than the J source, and detailing a founder of Uruk, biblical Erech, called Enmerkar, building a tower, ziggurat, to Enki in Eridu, and demanding tribute from Aratta, possibly to the east or northeast in modern Iran, with a threat that if they did not comply, then Enki would confound their language as he had done in the past. Possibly Nimrod was a composite legendary figure in the original J source and altered further when squeezed into the Bible by the priests. Perhaps archaeology will one day provide the answer. So let us go to the Tower of Babel. Chapter 11, and the whole earth was one language and of one speech, which isn't surprising as the whole earth at that time was supposedly Noah, his sons and their sons. They journey from the east to Shinar. From where it doesn't say. Shinar is Mesopotamia. To the east of Babylon are the Zagros Mountains and Iran, and Noah's Ark supposedly ended up on Ararat, hundreds of miles to the north. How Noah managed to get his family from Ararat to Iran and then back to Babylon, whilst taking time off to spend 3 or 4 years cultivating a vineyard, isn't completely clear. And then they decide to build a tower. Who's they? Well, when the tower was built, the consensus is that it was around 130 years after the flood, around the time of Peleg, as chapter 10:25 states that this was when the earth was divided. Some of the crazier creationists, is there a scale, claim that this verse is describing the separation of the continents. If one of those latches onto you, try to get them to consider the effect of tearing South America away from Africa and shifting it 3,000 miles across the ocean. As a clue, the devastating 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake was the result of a movement of the fault lines of just a few meters. Back to reality, or maybe not. So here we are 130 years after the flood. What was the population of the earth? Well, my family has always been pretty fecund, but if I go back 130 years and count the branches of the tree, I get to around 400 people. Do your own calculations for your tree, or any tree, or look at the Toledot of Noah as detailed in the Bible. There were barely enough able-bodied adults to build a barbecue, let alone a walled city and tower. And remember that God had not told them not to build a tower, or told them to stop building once they started, which of course he always knew they would anyway. No, he let them build it up and then punished them. Why? Apparently because building the tower would give mankind confidence to do anything they wanted to. And God stopping them from building the tower had what effect? None, of course, as the ziggurats which litter Mesopotamia and the pyramids of Egypt provide ample evidence that everyone just went straight back to building. Now, you would have thought that these couple of hundred people, scattered to the four winds, well, at least as far as the lands the Hebrews knew about, families ripped asunder, all because they built a tower, might have taken the hint. I wonder why they didn't. And God confused their languages. I want you to think about that, which will of course require you to use your language. You see, if I could somehow extract your ability to comprehend your current languages from your brain, how would your cognitive functions be affected? How would you be able to communicate any of your pre-existing ideas or draw anything up from your memory? It's a silly idea, and very obviously a much older myth concerning older gods, which was included into the Bible as an origins myth. The rest of chapter 11 is, as I said, Shem's line to Abraham, and I'm not going to dwell on it. The next video will start with Abram, where I think the Bible moves from the purely mythical to the possibly legendary. We shall see. If you like this, please take the time to thumb it up. Google is making it harder and harder to find videos, and the ratings do help. And thanks as always for watching.